I'll talk about how we at ScienceAtHome use games for citizen science research, public participation in research, and for education. So first, I'll just talk a little bit about the research that we're doing. So the foundation of that is that we have a number of games within the natural sciences, within social sciences and cognitive sciences, and then we also have machine optimization challenges within natural science. And then we try to combine all of that, learn something about strengths and weaknesses of human and machine approaches, and combine the best of both worlds in this sort of very interdisciplinary study and achieve something that we call hybrid intelligence. So we combine natural science, citizen science games from a number of different regions, so quantum physics, computer science, mathematics, and then we also have a suite of social science games where we call it Social Science Super Collider. We allow people to come in and join behavioral economics and other types of games. I'll talk briefly about one of these. It's the Emergence of Inequality in a game called Urbanizer. In the Urbanizer, we investigate how microscopic or individual senses of fairness, which is sort of generosity, reciprocity, and inequity aversion, sort of are well-known concepts. But then when we try to embed it into a game-like environment with a lot of people interacting and exchanging goods, then a macro society arises, and we can start to investigate what sort of macroscopic senses of fairness arise from meritocracy to extreme inequality to something that we in Denmark call the law of Jante, where the rich should not get too rich. And so the idea is that we can, in these game interfaces, we can sort of investigate how inequality in endowment, so that's abilities or opportunities, and also in the outcomes, gives rise to various different senses of fairness on the macroscopic scale. With respect to education, what we do is that we try to combine this citizen science, public participation in research, and inquiry-based science education and game-based learning together. And we use digital research games for 3 reasons. 1, it offers scalable student interactions. 2, since it's digital, it gives us a wealth of behavioral data that we can be using for rich kinds of involvement of the students in different parts of the process. I'll talk about that more later. And then it also potentially allows for a path for scaffolding inquiry-based activities on a grander scale. So we've introduced a concept that we call research enabling game-based education, which is called Regame. And the idea behind that is really just that normal game-based education has sometimes called chocolate-covered broccoli. It's fun, but not educational, or educational, but not fun. Inquiry-based science education has been very successful, but sort of is like a role-playing game where you already sort of, the teacher maybe knows the solution to that. And Regame offers a solution to that because we take citizen science challenges and actual research challenges. So the solution is not known, and it gives sort of epic meaning to the students. What we really focus on, and I'll show you that in an example later on, is we focus on not just bringing citizen science into the classroom, but matching citizen science very, very closely with the core curriculum so that it sort of enhances the meaning of the core curriculum or exemplifies the core curriculum that way. So sorry for the slide there. The idea is just that we can have an interdisciplinary study of various different elements, like the turbulence game or a statistics game and behavioral economics game, and then have a theme where we sort of explore from many different regions a particular topic. We do this together with Carol and the Smithsonian Center for Science Education, and she'll talk much more about this, so I won't say anything about it, but we've tested Regame one in something that we called the Regame Cup, which was a couple of years ago, where we had 200 student classes, a couple of thousand students competing class by class on a number of different challenges in quantum physics, in turbulence, psychology, statistics, and this Urbanizer game. And so they all class-wise try to sort of do research, do education at the same time, and go through these curricula. We are trying to scale it up at the moment and to do what we call a randomized control trial of Regame. We're setting up 150 schools in Denmark to test this on a more massive scale. One of the modules that I'll talk a little bit about here is on game theory and mathematical model in the real world. And so we use 2 different sort of kinds of interaction. One, our suite of behavioral economics games, where you can investigate behind generic challenges of the SDGs. There are the generic dilemmas and so related to distribution, sustainability, trust, coordination, collaboration. And then on a second aspect, we also use simulations that are not citizen science or not real research games, but simulations that are innate and that are used to illustrate to the students individual sort of or the core mechanisms that are at play at particular challenges. So one is a more generic insight into the generic dilemmas that we're all facing, and the second one is an illustration of the concrete mechanisms. All of that was sort of an example of leading up to us being able to facilitate more and more discussions, not just sort of delivering data for a citizen science project, but being part of more and more of these parts of the process. And Carol will also talk more about that. But the question is, how can we bring deeper and deeper levels of participation? And I will talk about two. One of them is an initiative, sort of very low-key initiative, in which we are sort of taking our citizen science challenges, and then we're decomposing that into the research cycle. What is the research question? What is the theory behind it? What's the design? What's the experiment? What's the conclusion? And then the students have to sort of watch a small video and identify and verbalize, formalize what that particular aspect of the research cycle is. A little bit more sort of ambitiously, we are working on creating digital interfaces that allows for a scaffolding of these kinds of extra discussions that are around a research topic or around an inquiry-based science education activity. And for that, the real problem is that Google Doc and other sort of available platforms now are very fixed. So that means that you have to adopt your discussion format to whatever Google Docs will allow. And we are trying to sort of move to a more malleable format in a project that's called Scinode, or the Citizen Science Notebook, where we are trying, where we have created with a fairly small amount of effort a scientific publication framework in which the students can discuss with each other. They can post new small individual facts, they can share them, they can comment on them, they can aggregate them together to a scientific argumentation. And we're also working on this platform being able to pull in third-party applications. So you generate something in a third-party application, citizen science game or another activity, and then inside of this you can take out the results, discuss the results, present the results, and aggregate the discussions behind that. So that's all sort of summarizing, taking games, applying them in a citizen science setting, and then seeing if we do this in an educational setting. What we have seen is very, very important is that the alignment to the core curriculum is extremely important, and then that the grandest challenge in the classroom is how can we, in a scalable way, facilitate these discussions that are going on at various different parts of the research cycle. With that, I thank you very much.